His name is Lobelia, and he has been framed as the dangerous criminal. But Lobelia sees a carriage getting attacked by a group of wolves. Seeing that, Lobelia starts to cast a magic and says move away. But after seeing that the people in that carriage fears Lobelia and thoughts to themselves that they are gonna die. But Lobelia used his infernal circle, advanced fire magic, which puts fire circle around the carriage. But this shocked everyone. But then Lobelia sees a night guy staring at him. To that, the night guy asks Lobelia if he is connected to rebels, but Lobelia says, forget about that. Here's a healing potion I made, and it's better than that useless high heal potion. At first the knight hesitated to drink it, but he drank it anyway. To both of their surprise, the knight's hand healed in a second. After seeing that, both of the knight were amazed. After that, a princess came out of that carriage and started thanking Lobelia for his achievement on saving them. But Lobelia says he was just doing that to kill some time, so he doesn't really deserve that thanks. But the princess still says thanks to Lobelia, since they got saved by him. But Princess Butler intervenes and tells her to stand back and goes on by saying, "What is your intentions here, you arrogant magician?" The knights around them was shocked to find the truth about Lobelia and pointed their swords at him by saying, "Even if you're our savior, we can't expose our princess to danger." Princess Butler. Julius grabbed her hands and takes her to the carriage. But Lobelia was just standing there silently. But suddenly Lobelia calls a knight, but the knight was scared but replies with yes. Lobelia then tells them to head to the west, since there is a town nearby. After hearing that, the knight says with a scared face, "Why should I take orders from you?" But to his surprise, Lobelia grabbed him and says, "Shut up and listen to me. Otherwise, princess is good as dead." And he goes on by saying, "Now, go and tell about this to everyone." After hearing that, the knight ran away to the carriage, but Lobelia says to himself, "Arrogant magician." Inside the carriage, the princess asked her butler Julius why everyone is afraid of Lobelia, even though he doesn't look like a bad person. But Julius says Lobelia is a notorious villain, and he goes on by saying he is called as the arrogant magician, Lobelia Crowley, hence Lobelia was the top student at the Magic Academy, and he used his powers for his own gains, which was hurting other people's because of that. Many people have lost their home and lives, so Lobelia sure deserves to be called as a demon, and he tells the princess to not get close to him, but the princess says it would have been better for him to just hand over me to the rebels rather than saving someone like me. And why did he do that? But to that, Julius says, "Even I don't know what that man was thinking." Princess goes on by saying, unlike her father, who got killed by a tyrant, she says she couldn't able to feel the malice from Lobelia. And she says Lobelia didn't even ask money for saving them, but rather he said it was just for time killing. After saying that, she thoughts to herself that was so cool. All of the sudden, someone knocks on the door, which happens to be the knight from earlier, and he explains what Lobelia has told him, to which Julius accepted. But the knight didn't say the name of Lobelia, since they might not believe it. The knight then thinks, even though we pointed our swords at him, he still cared about our safety, and goes on by thinking maybe he isn't bad guy, as the rumors say. Now Lobelia says his real name is Seto Arima, and goes on by saying he was a part-timer, who was supposed to turn 23 by this year, and his hobby is to play video games. But all of the sudden, he got reincarnated to be the wicked villain character, and goes on by saying it is the classic RPG fantasy game, and it was the popular game of all time. And the story of the game is the protagonist awakens the blessing of the brave flame, and with the help of the destinated girls, he will save the world from the evil. And that protagonist's name was Reinhard. And he goes on by saying despite his normal looks, the protagonist will earn the trust of many beautiful women. But on the other hand, he was reincarnated as the most hated villain, Lobelia Crowley, and he sits among the other 12 hated villains, and their purpose is to search about the forbidden dark magic. And he looks at the Lobelia diary to find out he has learnt the forbidden dark magic to its full extent. While extinct about why he got reincarnated as him, he remembers Lobelia dies at the end of the story. And he goes by thinking, I should avoid getting killed at all cost. And he goes on by saying, Lobelia is his favorite character, so he wishes him to have a good ending, despite he is being called the most hated villain in the game. But in real life, everybody's favorite was Lobelia. And the reason for that is, in a great war between demons and humans, in a border village at a conflict zone, is where Lobelia born. Despite their poverty, they still lived in happy life. At one day, small Lobelia was wondering he should find a new job rather than stealing money. But he was wondering what excuse should he use for the money he gained. But all of the sudden, something fell in front of him. But Lobelia knows the cruelty of the world, so he couldn't able to abandon the fallen demon. And Lobelia brought the demon to his home and gave the demon some food. And he sees his sister playing with demon, which made Lobelia happy. After everything over, the demon thanked them and left by saying he will never forget their kindness they gave. But Lobelia was really happy to help someone. But Lobelia doesn't know the demon army that was bought with that demon would demolish their hometown. The men's were killed and the women's and the children's are sold as slaves. Afterwards, in the cage, Lobelia is wondering. He thinks everything is his fault and he shouldn't have done something like that. But Lobelia somehow escapes and he starts to run around the town. While he was running, Lobelia bumps into someone. But to his surprise, the guy Lobelia bumps into asks him to be his son. Since the Crowley family couldn't able to have a child, he adopted Lobelia as his son. In order to become the next head of the family, Lobelia received an elite education and was attending the Grand Chariot Magic Academy at the age of 12. Lobelia's academic results were excellent, but because of the trauma he received, he couldn't able to return to his old self. And Lobelia was graduated as the top student in class. And he was thanking his father. But all of a sudden, Lobelia's father says there is something important to tell to him, which is more important than your grades. And he goes on by saying, your twisted personality to hurt someone without a second thought is bad. And he says Lobelia is no longer his son. But for Lobelia, he couldn't able to tackle the despair that was given by his beloved father. And he was fallen into despair so bad, he had no other way but to resort on the dark magic. After that, he started killing people, and someone called Lobelia. Lobelia then asks who is he. To that he says he is Reinhard, the hero that has come to stop him, against the entire guild. Lobelia fought for 2 days and 2 nights, and the hero says, in the power of friendship, you can't win alone. And he goes on by saying, rethink about your choices to Lobelia and left. But Lobelia was tormented and began humiliated. But this made Lobelia angry, and he goes on by saying he will hunt him down to the depths of the hell and make him some suffer like he did. After that, Lobelia grew stronger and challenged the hero for many times, in hopes of surpassing him. But Lobelia lost every time, and out of despair, Lobelia joined the Demon Lord army, which destroyed his hometown. But Lobelia was betrayed there too, and got casted a weakness spell by the Demon Lord's executives. But at that time, the hero came to defeat the Demon Lord's army. As a result, Lobelia lost his life. And that's how Lobelia became a fan's favorite. And Cetro remembers another memory, which was Lobelia thinking before he dies, in a lonely life filled with betrayal. He dies without being loved by anyone. So he decides to not let Lobelia walk into the same fate as the game's story. After everything over, Lobelia was sitting in a restaurant and everyone is staring at him, and the waiter came to take his order while sweating. To that, Lobelia was wondering that guy was literally afraid of him, and was relieved because he didn't get kicked out. But ever since Lobelia got reincarnated as the villain, and everywhere he goes, some people stare at him with fear, and some people stare at him with different eyes. And he goes on by thinking, to get a good reputation, he have to defeat the Dragon King Boros, and he has been ruling over the Kansas territory and suppressing its people. And Lobelia decides to hunt the Dragon King tomorrow itself, rather than waiting for that event to start. While Lobelia was thinking about it, someone came in and asked Lobelia a question, whether he is that arrogant magician, and also he says he got a good story to tell. But Lobelia declines. After that, the new guy tells Lobelia to take a look over there. To his surprise, it was one of the hero's knight, Claudia. Lobelia then thinks to himself that Claudia has a huge sense of justice, since she became a knight despite being a commoner. All of the sudden, the guy spills a glass of water on Lobelia, and he goes on by saying, "If I catch you here, I will get a lot of money." And someone from behind tried to punch Lobelia, but he quickly dodges the punch. When Lobelia was about to cast a magic, Claudia noticed him, so he stopped casting the magic. They caught Lobelia. Lobelia realized it doesn't really hurt in this body, but he doesn't really like getting hit, so he gently pushes them away with his wind magic shock. At the same time, he knocked out another guy. But Claudia is just watching Lobelia. But Lobelia just wanted to take a break and he left before he causes more trouble. While Lobelia was thinking about eating in another place, someone calls Lobelia from behind. To his surprise, it was Claudia, and she says, "You were assaulting those adventures, aren't you?" And she goes on by saying, "You weren't that kind of person who will let it go. What are you planning to do?" But Lobelia just says he just wanted to have a meal, but he got interrupted by those people, so he left. And Lobelia goes on by saying, "Even if I say I was a victim, you will not believe me." And Lobelia goes on by mocking her decision-making with a fixed belief really shows her training with Hero. After hearing that, Claudia left by saying, "I don't have time to waste by arguing with an opponent." But Lobelia was really nervous, since she came to close, and he goes on by thinking maybe she is gonna attack him or something, and he thought he should be more careful about what he will do in the future. The next day, Lobelia and Claudia somehow came in the same carriage. Claudia asks Lobelia, "Why is he on this carriage?" And she goes on by saying, "Passengers on the carriage to the Canis territory, or either affiliated with him or to do some business." But Lobelia says he is going there to defeat the Dragon King. After hearing that, Claudia got angry and tells Lobelia that it was her mission, so if she doesn't defeat the Dragon King, it's meaningless. But all of a sudden, the carriage driver stops and tells them that there is a huge boulder blocking the way. Afterwards, Lobelia gets down and tells the driver he will go by walk, and proceeds to jump over the rock. After that, he heard a noise, which happens to be Claudia. Lobelia then says, "It will be better if you turn back." But after hearing that, Claudia says, "You're gonna defeat me and join forces with Dragon King, aren't you?" After hearing that, Lobelia just left by saying, "I can't deal with this," but this shocked Claudia. She then trips and falls, but Lobelia catches her and saves her. But she just says sorry. Lobelia then says, "Be careful next time." But Claudia's ankle was in pain. After seeing that, Lobelia then starts to make an ointment with the herbs he got and applies it on her pain area. But this made her blush. After applying the ointment, Lobelia then leaves by saying it should be healed by tomorrow, and he says her to take rest while he keep guard. Claudia then asks Lobelia, "This isn't the guy that I last saw. If you were him, you would have abandoned me right there." But Lobelia says this is the real me. And Claudia asks Lobelia, "What will you do after defeating the Dragon King?" To that, Lobelia says he just wanted to test his power level. And she says, "Is it to surpass Reinhard?" To that, he says, "Think whatever you want." And Lobelia thinks Claudia is just an addition in the Dragon King arc, and says in-game they have to team up with the Dragon Knight Zeke in order to defeat him. Afterwards, Lobelia asks Claudia why is she traveling alone, and she says it is to settle the score in her life, and goes on by saying she will not explain it to him. And Lobelia thinks there is another story about Claudia that hasn't been told, and he realizes you can't defeat the Dragon King alone, at least without the help of Dragon Knight Zeke. And Lobelia decides to go along with her, and says to Claudia to not get in his way and do her own thing. Afterwards, he tells her to sleep. All of a sudden, she says thank you. But this shocked Lobelia, but only to realize she was sleep-talking. And he thinks to himself, the villain who has done numerous evil won't be thanked. The next morning, both of them were walking through the forest. Lobelia realizes he is in the Canis territory and thoughts to himself, if it's Lobelia defeating the Dragon King, then it should be easy. Claudia then says, the Dragon King forced the village people to bring him a sacrifice on every year, and goes on by saying today is the day, and tells Lobelia to not act recklessly since their security must have become tight. But he says, I don't take orders from her. After a while, both of them reach to the village, and Claudia says they will be more active at night, so let's wait here till it gets morning. But Lobelia sees someone getting kidnapped as in sacrifice, but that soldier explodes her house and the sacrifice girl shouts, "Papa, Mama," after seeing that Claudia almost says someone's name and stops. But this made Lobelia curious. But the soldiers are saying they should have just handed over the sacrifice rather than letting her escape. After hearing that, Claudia became angry and started to run in, but Lobelia was thinking, "Aren't you the one who said not to act recklessly?" Claudia then takes down 2 soldiers with a slice, and other 2 soldiers saw her before they could call for help. Claudia defeats them, and the sacrifice girl calls Claudia by her name. Afterwards, someone from the Dragon King army came and started to clash with Claudia. She taunts him by saying she will abolish the entire system of sacrifice. But this made the dragon soldier angry, and he started to get serious, and the battle goes on. Claudia was thinking there are no openings for her to get close. At last, Claudia's sword as sent flying. She was about to give up. But all of a sudden Lobelia comes in and punches that dragon knight. But Claudia tells Lobelia that it's her fight and tells him not to interfere. But Lobelia rejects that and tells her, if she wants to die, then die. But I'm the one who's going to kill the Dragon King, and tells her to follow him. And Lobelia goes on by saying before a backup comes, let's invade the Dragon King's castle. At the castle, the Dragon King has realized one of his subordinate has been killed, and his right hand asks him, so you know everything about everyone. To that the Dragon King says everything that works is also a part of me. And he goes on by saying, the nature in Kansas is nice and very comfortable, and say to his subordinate to get rid of anyone who is interrupting this peacefully moment. And he leaves the place. And he says, they can't win against us because we outnumber them. But to his surprise, every one of them he has sent has been killed by those 2 of them. And Lobelia says, I wasted my time on this easy task, while the Dragon King's subordinate is standing there shocked. Lobelia then looks at him, which made him terrified, and he started to run inside the castle. While he was trying to explain what happened, the Dragon King says, I trusted you with my clan, but you made them get killed. Now you have betrayed my trust, and the subordinate was shocked. Before he could apologize, the Dragon King kills him. After that, he says he was disappointed. Lobelia and Claudia breaks the door and gets in. This made the Dragon King shocked, and the Dragon King tells them that was a manner less action while smiling. And he tells them, I welcome you to my castle, and he then tells his name to them as Boros, and says to call him as a Dragon King Boros. He then asks Lobelia to join as his subordinate, since he has lost his excellent subordinates. But Lobelia quickly refused his offer, and the Dragon King says one last question, and asks Lobelia why is he challenging to a fight. To that Lobelia says he wants to free Kansas, but this made Claudia shocked. After that, the Dragon King pulled out his sword and tells them, I am the Dragon King, so I won't fight you guys in a fair way. After saying that, Boros swings his sword. The shockwave that came from that swing made Lobelia slide backward, and in an instant Boros came near to Lobelia by pointing his sword on him. Lobelia thinks, what a heavy blow with just a swing, and Boros says, you are far better than that human around here. But Lobelia says the weakest always bark louder. After saying that, Lobelia tries to break the sword, but before he could do that, the Dragon King pulls back and says, this sword is one of the strongest in the world. While he was saying that, Claudia stabs Boros, but Boros says he was planning to enjoy Claudia. Afterwards, he says, it looks like you want to die now, and Claudia pulls back her sword and shouts to Boros that she will kill him, and slashes him again. But the Dragon King pulls out his sword by saying, looks like you want to die. But Lobelia quickly uses his wind magic, shock, and made her fly away by escaping the attack of Boros, as a result of her passing out. And Lobelia was shocked that he forgot she was lighter than him. But the Dragon King realized what he just did, and asks, Lobelia, are you the famous magician? And Lobelia shows his magic book, but the Dragon King was quite shocked and starts to analysis the book. Lobelia was holding, but only to quickly realize, Lobelia was casting a dark magic. Afterwards, Lobelia says, wow, you found out it was a dark magic, and Lobelia unleashes his attack, Jet Black Spear. Hell August, but Boros blocked the attack with a swing of his sword, and he quickly attacks by breaking the floor. to which Lobelia dodges it, and after dodging for a while, Lobelia casts another dark magic. Ominous chain and nullifies Boros' moments, but the Dragon King tries to break free and breaks the chains. To that Lobelia thought, what a power, if this goes on it will be bad. After saying that, Lobelia casts another dark magic, Deadly Thunder, and it was a direct hit, and the Dragon King was just lying there. And Lobelia says, I finally got you, but he was relieved that it worked. Afterwards, he goes and checks on Claudia, and it looks like she hasn't woke up. While Lobelia is checking on her, the Dragon King stands up and says this was his first to ever be overwhelmed by someone, and he goes on by saying, you are the first one. But Lobelia was shocked on inside. Before he could say something, Boros has turned into his second form, which was a dragon form, and he goes on by saying, no warrior has brought me into this form. Last time I turned into this form was 500 years ago. But to that Lobelia says, I have no interest on losing to someone like you, and goes on by calling the Dragon King a small fry. And Boros says this won't last long and attacks Lobelia. But he dodged the attack and uses in another attack. While everything was going on, Claudia was having a dream. In her dream, she wakes up to see her family, and her mother and father are laughing and being wholesome about her reading a book. And when Claudia was younger, she loved a story of a certain night girl. And she goes on by saying, as a owner of the holy sword, Reincarnated, she also wanted to be the knight. And Claudia and her friends was trying to explore the forest, even though their parents as scolded them not to go. Before going, Monica from that group tells them, we look like sisters. And while they were having fun, and the nightmare begins, the Dragon King took over the village and kills anyone who resisted and asked to offer a young girl as a sacrifice. But the first woman Boros asked was Monica. But Monica shouts, Claudia will get rid of you guys in no time, and goes on by saying she is strong. But Claudia was chosen as a sacrifice for the next year, so they digged a hole in their house to escape. But their parents says escape by yourself and get to the royal capital and become a splendid knight. But this made Claudia cry, and she hugged her parents. And she goes on by thinking, even though she looked up to being a female knight, but she couldn't able to do anything but to run. After everything over, Claudia wakes up. Lobelia sees that she woke up, but to her surprise, she was surrounded by a barrier, which was casted by Lobelia. And Claudia thinks to herself that, I have to face the Dragon King, who is stronger than me. I must face him alone. But now Claudia realized that she has a power ally, and goes on by thinking, this will turn into a huge atonement for Lobelia. And the Dragon King uses his dragon breath by saying, let's end this in one go. But all of a sudden Claudia jumps in by saying her mother name and father name and stabbed the Dragon King in his head. But the Dragon King threw her, but Lobelia catches her, and Claudia says the rest is up to you, Lobelia, and he goes on by saying, I should unleash something that will surpass the Dragon King's regeneration. After that, Lobelia casts his powerful magic, the Gate of Fear, illusionary Hell's Gate. That magic then captures the Dragon King, and in the end, the door closes. Claudia is just watching it happen, with a shocked expression, and asks Lobelia, where does this door leads to? But he says he doesn't know that either. After defeating the Dragon King, both of them returns to the village, but the villagers are started cursing Lobelia, saying dark magic users should be perished. But Lobelia thinks he is not welcomed here, and he goes on by saying, looks like coming to the village was a bad idea. After hearing that, Claudia goes and shouts to the villagers as, you bunch of fools, and says to the villagers, is this what you guys say to the savior of our village? Without him, I would have lost in the battle between the Dragon King. While she was shouting, Claudia's sister hugs her and says, everyone is just scared and anxious. Please understand them, sister. After hearing that, Lobelia says, I didn't defeat the Dragon King, hoping for any type rewards, and left. But Claudia calls Lobelia and she says, thank you. And everyone in the village started saying thank you. Lobelia says, bye-bye. After a few days later, at the Heroes Guild, a letter has arrived to Reinhard, and the letter is from Claudia, which says, the one that defeated the Dragon King was Lobelia. After reading this, Reinhard was shocked, and the news was also reached to the princess, who Lobelia saved before, and another girl heard the princess speaking about Lobelia. After defeating the Dragon King Boros, Lobelia was walking through a bridge while thinking about saving more people to get a good reputation. But because of Lobelia's rude speaking and his reputation, he wasn't able to get a good job even after asking countless people. While he was thinking about leaving the country, he heard a noise from behind. But to his surprise, it was a cat girl. But she straight up leans on Lobelia and asks she is hungry and need food. But Lobelia was happy to have a chance to save someone, and he gave his dried meat and she ate it right away. Lobelia is wondering about he haven't seen a character like this in the game, and goes on by thinking it wouldn't be bad to help some random beast girl. After eating the food, she thanked Lobelia, and Lobelia asked her name, to which she says her name is Rydia Katesith, and also a daughter of the Beastman tribe. After hearing, Lobelia was in shock and decides to leave right away. And Lobelia explains in the game when she becomes the leader of their tribe, she will launch an all-out war on humans because of her self-centered personality. And in the game, only her name has been revealed other than the story. So Lobelia decides not to get involved with her, since this will only make him look more villainous rather than a good person. But Rydia insisted on Lobelia to help her, and tells him that she has a reward for him. And Lobelia looks at her after hearing the word reward, and Rydia says she will marry Lobelia as a reward, after hearing that Lobelia straight up rejects the offer. But she says she was fallen for Lobelia, and tells him isn't that an honor? But Lobelia says it's not, and she insists him by saying her breasts are big. But Lobelia didn't care about anything she said, and she insisted on adopting her as a pet. But Lobelia was just annoyed and tells her he doesn't have a time to deal with the problem you created. But all of the sudden, Rydia faints and falls down, and Lobelia confirms that she has a fever and decides to make food. And Rydia wakes up to the smell of the food, and asks Lobelia, is that food with the sparkling eyes? And he gave Rydia some food and tells her to eat before it gets cold. She then takes a bite and tells Lobelia it's really tasty, but he says it's only a porridge, and she says after I get married with you, I will be able to eat something like this every day. But Lobelia says go away after your fever is gone. But she says with a worried face that she has someone to meet. But after hearing her say that, Lobelia thinks, so she didn't ran away from because of boredom. And he realizes since he defeated the Dragon King rather than the hero, some changes must have happened to the real story, and he decides to help Rydia. After that, Rydia says the girl she wants to meet named Raquel, and she's currently studying magic under someone named Noah. And she says the most sad thing is after Rydia becomes the leader of the Beastmen, she can't leave the forest because of the rules, and says she wants to meet her at least one time. After hearing that, Lobelia says he will help her under one condition, which was when Rydia becomes the leader of the Beastmen, she have to do what Lobelia tells her to do. But Rydia was in tears and hugs him by saying thank you. He then pulled her back by saying stop clinging to me, it's so annoying, but inside he thinks it's so cute. He then asks Rydia, are there anyone following you? She then tells Lobelia there are 2 people from Heroes Guild following her. Meanwhile, 2 people from the Heroes Guild is waiting to ambush them. And the girl says we can easily kill them if we ambush them. But the guy says our mission is to bring back the princess alive. She then says sorry I forgot with a disappointed face. All of the sudden Lobelia jumps over them by saying you fools. Both of the people from the Hero Guild looked shocked. While Lobelia was running, Rydia tells him to look back. When he looked back, it was Missile following him. But Lobelia quickly used his fire magic and burned every missile except one, which made explosion, which happens to be Jake from the Hero Guild. And the girl tells Jake, it's unfair of you to kill them right after you told me not to. And he says let's go and check on them and complete this mission by capturing the princess alive. But after reaching there, Lobelia was standing there angrily, and Jake was surprised and tells nobody told him that the arrogant magician will be a bodyguard. And the girl asks Jake if it's okay to kill Lobelia. To that Jake says, I will give support from behind, so go ahead. After hearing that, the girl smiled crazily and attacks Lobelia. But Lobelia charged his hands and blocked the attack, and she attacked again, which he blocked too. Jake also attacks, which Lobelia blocks again. And all of a sudden she retreats and asks Lobelia why isn't he attacking. To that, Lobelia says he wants to have a chat. And she says, "What are we even supposed to talk?" And she goes on by saying, "A criminal. Who helped Princess escape, or should I say a kidnapper?" Afterwards, Jake stopped her by saying, "It sure is weird that this man haven't made any moves against us, so let's at least ask him out." And Lobelia says he has no intention on fighting them. But she asked, "How can we trust that?" Lobelia says he can kill them anytime, but he didn't do that. To which Jake agrees and asks Lobelia to tell the reason he wants to protect Rydia. To which Lobelia says he wants Rydia to meet her friend. And Lobelia thinks to himself, the heroic knight will understand if he tells them the truth by being honest. But to his surprise, both of them says it's a lie, and Lobelia gets ready to fight them until the princess escapes. But all of a sudden, Rydia drop kicks Jake in the face. Lobelia was shocked. Jake was sent flying. Afterwards, the girl from the Heroes Guild says the princess is also going to fight and says it looks like my subordinate is passed out. And she tries to slash Rydia, but she jumped, and the girl says, "Forget about the quest, I'm gonna kill you." But Rydia climbs on the tree and says lowly humans' attacks like yours won't hurt me. But this irritated her, and she goes on by biting off her finger. Rydia was shocked. But Lobelia thinks it was a berserk mode, and when it is activated you can't tell who is your friend or enemy anymore. After activating the berserk mode, she slashes her blade, but Lobelia lifts Rydia and starts to run, and tell to Rydia, "I already told you to run, and why haven't you ran, you stupid cat?" But Rydia says she can't run away from her husband, and her pride won't let her do it. And he sees her berserk mode and realizes there is no stopping to her, and uses his ominous chain, but she breaks the chains, and this shocked Lobelia. Right before she could attack him, someone shot her and she was sent flying. Lobelia then takes a look on who did that. To his surprise, it was Jake, and tells them to leave before the backup arrives. Lobelia tells to him, "Then what about your quest?" And Jake says, "But the situation has changed at this rate, she will kill the princess too," and tells he will buy time. Lobelia then says thank you and realizes he was able to tell thanks without any problem. Afterwards, Jake says, "I hope you can meet the friend of yours." While they are walking through the forest, Rydia says sorry to Lobelia. To that, Lobelia says, "You are still ignorant and young. Because of that, you will still make lots of mistakes." But Rydia says she will not do any more mistakes. Lobelia rejects that and tells her you will make many mistakes and you will struggle every time. But she was sad after hearing that. Lobelia then goes on by saying, "As long as you are alive, you can change," and tells her getting back up after fall is what life is about. And he thinks those mistakes will before he finishes. Lobelia heard another Lobelia say, "What will come after that?" Rydia asked what happened, but he says nothing, and he thinks to himself that voice sounded familiar and realizes he is now this body's personality and says it must be his imagination. Both of them then walked out of the forest and sees an open area. Hill of flowers. After walking a while, they sees a small girl practicing her magic, and she notices both of them. Rydia then shouts Rachel while running towards her, and she says Rydia, and both of them hugged, and Rachel says she missed her. Rachel then tells her name and asked Lobelia's name. Rydia realizes she doesn't know Lobelia's name too, but Lobelia says he has no name and he is just a mere companion. Rachel says, "Since you brought my friend here safely, so name doesn't really matter," and asks Lobelia if he is a magician, and she says this is her first time meeting a magician, other than her master, and asks him to unleash a spell on the scarecrow, and Lobelia thinks a low-level spell would be better because Rachel doesn't know who Lobelia is. Before he could use a magic spell, someone comes out of the house and tells who was crying and shouts at Lobelia by saying, "You there?" But Lobelia was shocked. He may know his true identity, but to his surprise that guy was interested on his spellbook and asks Lobelia to show it to him by begging for it. Lobelia then gives it by saying, "I'm doing it out of pity," and he then tells everyone to come inside. Everyone then says on the table, but Lobelia thinks to himself, surprisingly a warm welcome. Afterwards he tried to open the spellbook, but he couldn't able to. And Lobelia says the spellbook will open only for the people it choose. After hearing he was disappointed, but Rachel consulted him. and he tells to Rydia it was his first time meeting her. After hearing that, she says, "Thank you for taking care of Rachel." But he says Rachel is the one that has been taking care of him all this time. And Rydia then gives him some of her magic restore potion, since she heard him getting his magic power to low. Lobelia then thinks Rydia also have a good side, and Rachel says, "Now I don't have to work overtime because of this potion," and both of them look at him, while Rydia says, "Hopeless master." After that, Lobelia says, "Let's leave." But Rydia was shocked, and the master tells them to stay a little longer, since they might tired from their journey. But Lobelia says, "We are being pursued, so if we stay any longer, it will be dangerous for you and your disciple." Before both of them are about to leave, Master tells them to wait and gives them 2 rings. Lobelia was shocked and thinks to himself, "Is it an engagement ring?" Rydia was shocked and tells, "How do you know we are getting married?" But this shocked Rachel, and the master says, "It is a magic item." Lobelia says, "Don't you know the value of this items? Are you stupid or something?" And after hearing that, the master says, "You made Rachel laugh by bringing her friend here. Please take this as a thanks." Afterwards, Lobelia accepts it. Afterwards, both of them left. After a while, Lobelia tells to Rydia that he has something to tell her. But she says, "So you finally fell for me, isn't it?" But Lobelia decides to tell her his name and tells her his name. But she was shocked and tells him, "Isn't that the famous magician?" And goes on by saying she thought he would be a bad person, but didn't expect him to be this kind. After hearing that, Lobelia thinks to himself, "Do you really think I'm kind?" While they were speaking, someone called Lobelia. To both of their surprise, it was the army of beastmen, and they are surrounded by them. Afterwards, someone from there tells the Rydia to come here. But she looked at Lobelia, and he says to go with them, since they came all the way here to take her back, and tells her to go. Afterwards, she walked slowly, and Lobelia thinks to himself, "If Jake from the Hero Guild delivered the message, everything should go smoothly." But all of the sudden, someone says, "You brought both of my companions to the brink of death because of you. They may not wake up anymore. You are the only one who uses dark magic, and I sense dark magic on both of them." But Lobelia says it wasn't him. But still they shot Lobelia, and Rydia was shouting Lobelia. After a while, in the underground prison of the Heroic Guild, Lobelia was thinking he can't get out because of the magic barrier inside the cell, and was feeling pressured. If nothing done, it will be a game over for him. But all of a sudden, someone called Lobelia and fell in front of him. Afterwards, she tells him it's been a while. To that, she asks him if he is the one that hurt those 2. To which Lobelia says, "No, I didn't." Afterwards, she says, "I knew the Lobelia who saved me will never do such things," and tells him she's gonna tell them to release Lobelia. But he says, "Don't tell them, it is my problem." But she insists on by saying, "Take this as a repay of saving her before." But Lobelia says, "I did it for to time pass, so don't get involved with me." But she says, "I refuse, and I'm a royalty, and definitely will pay back the favor." A guard then arrives and tells her to come with him. While they are leaving, the princess says she has huge feeling for Lobelia. But Lobelia was just sitting there flabbergasted. Meanwhile, at the hospital, someone says good morning to Reinhard, and he says it back. Afterwards, Alicia says it feels uncomfortable to doubt a person without any proper evidence. But Reinhard pats her head, while saying, "You think like that because you are kind." And he goes on by saying the only one who could use dark magic is Lobelia, so it must be him. And he says he is gonna beat him since he hurted his friends, and leaves the room. But all of the sudden, Jake moves his hand, to which Alicia notices it. At the battlefield, Lobelia was walking through the stairs, and everyone notices. And he arrives in there, and Reinhard says, "I didn't expect you to attack my friends because of that. You are going to duel me fairly." And Lobelia asked why to that. Reinhard says he wants to pass the judgment on him personally. But Lobelia says there are many ways to solve this by speaking the truth. But Reinhard denies that by shouting, "There is nothing there to discuss with someone like you." And he says he will not forgive Lobelia. Afterwards, Lobelia thinks to himself, it looks like Reinhard wants to fight no matter what. And he realizes if he beats Reinhard, this will only anger other members. So Lobelia decides to do what has been decided long ago, and he opens the spellbook. The start of the duel. Reinhard rushes in and swings his sword, but Lobelia dodges it, and he swings it again, only to blocked by Lobelia. And Lobelia says, "Lower you sword, Reinhard." He refused it, and Lobelia uses his ominous chain magic and catches the hero. And Lobelia says she went on berserk mode and Jake was trying to stop her. In the end, that happened. But the hero says, "I won't believe that type of convenient story." To that, Lobelia says, "I don't want to fight you. Go ask the people that was involved directly." But Reinhard says he will not believe his story, and don't try to escape from your sins, you coward, while charging his holy sword. Lobelia then realizes the holy sword, but before he could dodge that, he got his right shoulder slashed by the hero, and he says, "Don't underestimate me," and goes on by slashing Lobelia, which he deflects it every time. But Lobelia was thinking to himself, the protagonist full of justice, why isn't he listening to Lobelia? And all of a sudden Lobelia shouts, "You don't believe, because I'm Lobelia, the villain." Afterwards, he decides not to hold back and go all out by saying, "I will convince the hero by my strength," and starts to cast a huge magic spell, which started shaking the whole place. Afterwards, a huge dark magic circle appeared around the hero and starts to weaken him, but Lobelia casts another spell, Jet Black Spear. While he was pushing them away, Lobelia rushes in and punches the hero in the stomach, which made him fly away. Afterwards, everyone from the Hero Guild starts to say, "Not only you want to kill my comrade, but you want to kill our leader too." On inside, Lobelia thinks it was Reinhard who wanted to duel with him, but on outside Lobelia says, "Move away. Small fries." Reinhard then gets back and tells everyone to stand back, since it's a serious duel, and says to Lobelia to resume the fight. Afterwards, Lobelia says he will pin down Reinhard and uses Jet Black Spear. But Reinhard rushes in and slashes Lobelia. But Lobelia, hand got small cut. Afterwards, he uses his flame magic. But even after that, Reinhard rushes in. Lobelia then realizes he is getting stronger and stronger and goes on by finding, maybe because of the plot armor. Reinhard then says, "How dare you to show up here after hurting my friends and kidnapping the princess?" To that, Lobelia says he was just being there to be her bodyguard to help the princess see her friend. And in the end, the hero says, "Don't add more pile of lies." Afterwards, Lobelia thinks to himself it's useless to say anything anymore, and goes on by thinking all the bad thing that happened to Lobelia, and realizes how lonely Lobelia was. Afterwards, Lobelia shouts, "That's how you discarded many people without even asking what happened to their side." But Reinhard was shocked before he could react. Lobelia punches Reinhard, which sent him flying. And Lobelia says, "You think you are great just because you are justice." And he starts to punch Reinhard by saying, "Why should I have to be hated just because I'm Lobelia?" And he goes on by saying he wants to be recognized by everyone and live a happy life. And says he have the right to protect someone and make them happy, just like you protect others. But Reinhard was shocked and asks Lobelia, "Why are you crying?" Afterwards, Lobelia raises his hands to punch Reinhard and realizes he can't move his body. While Lobelia is thinking about that, Reinhard takes his sword and stabs Lobelia. Reinhard then stands up and declares his victory. Afterwards, someone intervenes and tells Reinhard to stop, which was Elisha. Afterwards, Lobelia thinks to himself why the game heroine Elisha is here. And all of a sudden, the people Lobelia saved before has arrived and stands against the hero Reinhard.
Afterwards, Sieg tells to Reinhard that the fight is over, to which Reinhard tells him to move since he was so close to avenge his friends, to which he says that it's their loss. After hearing that, Reinhard was shocked, and Sieg goes on by explaining to Reinhard that Lobelia was saying the truth all along, to which Reinhard still refuses to believe it, and he goes on by saying that Lobelia is an arrogant magician. But Lobelia was thinking that Reinhard is right, and he thinks that no matter how hard he tries, he will never get acknowledged, and decides to be a real villain from now onwards, since the real Lobelia decided to do it. But all of a sudden Claudia says that he saved them, which shocked Lobelia, and she says that without Lobelia their homeland will be under oppression, to which Sieg says that he had doubt about Lobelia in the start, but now he trusts Lobelia. And the royal guards comes in and says that they are here to save Lobelia by the order of their master. Afterwards, Elisha says that Zeke woke up and told the truth about Lobelia, who tried to help him stop Zordia, and she tells Reinhard to not point his sword at an innocent, but after hearing that the hero still rejects it, and says that Lobelia the evil will never help anyone, to which Alicia shouts at him to accept that he is in wrong here, and Reinhard says that he did it for his friends. And after hearing that, Alicia says that they never asked Reinhard to help them, which shocked the hero and all the others who are watching. Afterwards, Alicia goes to help Lobelia by giving him a healing magic, and she tells him to not die, to which Lobelia says that he doesn't want to die either, and everyone was looking at Lobelia in a sad face, while Alicia is telling him to not die. And all of a sudden Lobelia's ring started to glow, and that ring glows more, which was too bright for others. And in the end, Alicia and Lobelia was disappeared. Afterwards, Alicia opens her eyes, and she was sitting in a cave, and she realizes that someone had given her a robe, while thinking on what happened to her, and in the end she decides to find an exit, also the owner of this robe, and suddenly Lobelia stands in front of her and asks her on where she is going, which shocked her, and she gave a huge scream. After a while she was angry at him, and Lobelia says that she wets herself by getting scared, while she was telling him to not bring it up ever again. Afterwards Lobelia thinks to himself that this might be an unlucky event, but he decides to do nothing since he is a gentleman. Afterwards Alicia asks Lobelia that his wounds haven't been healed yet, and he is covered in blood, and Lobelia says that this ring is given to him by a magician, and it has two effects in it. One is getting teleported when the owner is in danger, and another one is complete heal, and he says that he just defeated the goblins that was nesting here, but she screamed at her. After hearing that, Alicia asks him sorry. After that, Alicia asks him when they will be getting to their last place before teleportation, to which he says that they will move out once the storm is gone, and Alicia realizes that's why she could hear a window blowing. After that, Lobelia thinks to himself that after seeing that storm's strength, he realizes that they are in the demon continent, and he says that it was first called as a spirit continent. But the war between humans and demons broke, which continued for 100 years, and now this harsh weather is common at this demon continent. Afterwards he thinks that they must be in the south side of the demon continent. Afterwards Alicia says Reinhard's name in her sleep, and after seeing that, Lobelia realizes that they might think Lobelia as a kidnapper, since he teleported with Alicia. He thinks that Reinhard loves Alicia so much that he will search for her desperately, and he thinks that they won't be searching in the demon continent right away. So he is in safe now, and he gets anxious, since if he doesn't bring her back sooner, he will for sure get killed, and in the end Lobelia decides to send her back safely as his next mission. After a while they were walking in the desert, and Lobelia thinks to himself that the storm that came last night must have blown away the clouds. After that Alicia calls Lobelia, but he says that if she is after the heat-resistant potion, she used the last one before, and Alicia says that she wants to ask another thing, and she says that why Lobelia looks angry whenever he is against Reinhard, to which Lobelia says that there is nothing good comes from telling her that, and he says that he won't be fighting them anymore, to which Alicia became silent. And then Lobelia thinks to himself that he is a type of person who always wants to be at top, which is why he dislikes Reinhard. But then something pops out of the ground, which was two monsters, and Alicia was shocked to see it, but Lobelia just tells her to not make a huge fuss over some insects, and he tells her to use a fire magic while casting his own, and uses it on them, and Alicia also does the same, and one of them comes out of the ground, and before it could attack Alicia, Lobelia takes it down, and Alicia was feeling tired. And after seeing that, he asks Alicia if she is already tired from this, to which she just tells him that she isn't, but Lobelia thinks that it can't be helped, since it's an unfamiliar battlefield for her, and on outside he says that she is useless, and goes on by lifting her, to which she says that this might be appropriate since they only met now, to which Lobelia tells her to shut up, and he says that he hates every woman who looks like they might die any time, to which she says that she isn't weak, and says even Reinhard had praised her, and she started sob, and gets angry on Lobelia, but Lobelia was thinking that he is jealous of Reinhard, since a girl like her likes him. Afterwards it was a night time, and Alicia says that if the teleportation was on accident, he shouldn't bother taking care of her, and leave her, and she asks him if he is doing it because she saved him before, and she says that she did it for Reinhard, since she doesn't want him to be a murderer. After hearing that, Lobelia asks her if he okay to be forgiven, since he is the one that started this, to which she says that he is okay to be forgiven since he is kind to them. After hearing that, Lobelia says that she is also a twisted one, and he thinks to himself that Alicia is an honest girl who truly cares about others, but whenever it comes to Reinhard she will be too blind to see the truth. Afterwards Lobelia says that it doesn't matter that she saved him, but if she is with him, he will not let her die, to which she asks him on why, to which he just says that it will be inconvenient for him, which made her sad, and he thinks that he will be in a bad spot if he let her die. Afterwards he thinks that he wants the main heroine to have a long happy life, and he goes on by thinking that Alicia and Reinhard met at a deep forest at a temple, where she has been sealed for 1,000 years, and Reinhard felt sorry for her and broke the seal, and that's the beginning of this game's story, and he thinks that she holds a power deep within her, which could turn the world upside down, and the world could face a serious destruction. Because of that, many people is trying to take Alicia's power, and he decides to protect her at all costs to avoid the bad ending. And Alicia was taking a nap, and Lobelia thinks that he is tired of saving others and now he wants to take a nap, and he sleeps, and suddenly Alicia wakes up, and she started to run away alone, and she thinks that Lobelia might be after her power, since he doesn't say to her on why he is saving her. Afterwards she realizes that she haven't ran into a single monster, and thinks that she might have come to the safe zone, and suddenly the ground collapses, as a result of her falling into some hole, and she wakes up and uses her fire magic as light, and she realizes that the hole in the ceiling is too high to reach, so she decides to find an exit, and she started to walk in the labyrinth, and she thinks that she is so pathetic that she couldn't do anything without Lobelia, and she starts to cry by sitting in the corner, and suddenly the place just shakes, and she was confused, and realizes that she needs to get out of here as soon as possible, and she starts to run, and in the end she gets into a room, and she looks at something which was a monster, and it walks up to her, and she flabbergasted to see that monster. After waking up, Lobelia realizes that she has ran away from him, and he chases her by following her footprint, and Lobelia realizes that in the game there will be a labyrinth will be here, and he thinks she would have died a long ago, since she isn't a fighter magician, but if the boss monster lured her to him then she would have been survived, and then Lobelia decides to go to the boss room. While jumping he thinks that he already cleared this labyrinth 3 times in the game, and after jumping in lots of monster spawns, and he decides to kill them since it will be a good opportunity to relieve the stress, and then Lobelia uses his magic attack named Curse Break, which killed a lot of them, and another one comes behind him, which he punches it. After that he rushes to the boss room, and then he realizes that the boss room is at the corner, and he sees the door to the boss room, and kicks it open, and he sees the monster trying to eat Alicia, and it was about to put her in its mouth, and she looks at Lobelia and asks for help, and then Lobelia uses his magic and slashes it, while saying that she is such a troublesome woman. And then he catches her and uses his thunder magic as a final blow to the boss monster. While tearing up, she looks at Lobelia, and he flinches on her forehead, and she says sorry to him, and the boss comes back, and he tells her to talk after defeating it, and Lobelia casts a huge spear and uses it to annihilate that monster, which killed it. After doing that, Lobelia collapses a little, and while walking he thinks to himself that the monster he defeated will get more bigger and bigger as the time goes on. So he tried doing the same as the Lobelia does in the game, which really consumes lots of magic power. Afterwards, she says sorry because she caused him trouble by running on her own, to which Lobelia thinks that Alicia must have been anxious by being with Lobelia because of his sharp tongue, and he decides to tell what he is really thinking, and he says that he is not interested in making her a test subject because he doesn't want Reinhard to hate him again, and he says that will be an enough reason to send her back safely. And he goes on by saying that she is different from those common fools. She has a self-awareness. After a while she calls Lobelia, and says thanks to Lobelia for saving her. After hearing that, Lobelia asks her call him by his name normally. After that, Lobelia tells to that they are going to a town, and says its name as Arcadia. After hearing that name, Alicia was happy, since that place is being managed by Reinhard, and then Lobelia thinks to himself that this town is placed in the demon continent, which means the supplements will be tough to get through, and in the scenario this town will be in the poverty, and after learning that Reinhard will fall into an despair at the game. But Lobelia decides to fix that problem before he could finish it, and they arrived at the town, and an arrow comes flying missing both of them, and then the guards asks them on who are they, to which Lobelia says that they lost their home in war, so they came here, since they heard they will get a new home here. And Alicia asks him on why he is lying, to which he tells her to play along, to which Alicia says that they now have nowhere to go if they got rejected here, after hearing that the guard lets them in, and someone from the village says that he will show them around this village, and then they walked around, and Alicia looks at the state of this town. After a while Alicia says that she didn't know that Arcadia was in this state, and Lobelia says that Reinhard probably have no idea on what's going on here. And afterwards he tells her to eat, since someone as pathetic as her cannot survive without strength, and she was thinking at first, and then she takes the bite, which was really tasty to her, and she asks him on why is this so delicious, but Lobelia tells her to shut up and eat the food, and suddenly Alicia sees something, and she tells Lobelia to look behind him, which was that kids with drowl in their mouths, and Alicia asks him on what they should do. After a while the kids are eating the food with them. After eating the food they says, "Thanks for the food," and they started to explain their names to Lobelia and Alicia. Afterwards a kid named Rue says that the delivery ships stopped coming, and because of that they couldn't able to eat anything good. After hearing that, Lobelia thinks to himself that the situation is worse than he thought. Afterwards Lobelia asks them on what they think of Hero, and they started to get annoyed about Hero, and they didn't think good about him, to which Lobelia tells them that it's pretty rude. Afterwards Lobelia thinks to himself that he wants to train them enough to protect themselves, without the help of heroes, and then Lobelia says if they want strength, and with a happy face they said they want to be strong. And then with a shocked face Alicia asks Lobelia on if he is going to ask half of their life in exchange for strength, to which he says that he won't. And after a while Lobelia leaves the house by saying that he wants to patrol this area before it gets dark, and outside, Lobelia was thinking that the town people shared their food with them even though the aid had been stopped for 3 months, so he wants to repay them. And while he was walking, a huge monster comes in, and with a happy face Lobelia uses his magic, piercing through that monster, and inside he was happy to find it, and decides to take it back. Afterwards he realizes that he can't take everything, so he decides to take some, and all of the sudden his grim or glows, and something comes out of that book, which was the Dragon King Boros.
And after seeing his appearance, Lobelia brings out his annihilation spear. And after seeing that the Dragon King was scared, and he tells to Lobelia that he doesn't have any hostile intentions. And after hearing that, Lobelia asks him on how is he alive. To which he started to say that the Hell Gate gave him 2 choices. It's either he stay inside the gate, or become loyal to Lobelia and work under him. So in the end he decided to serve Lobelia. But Lobelia didn't believe it and says that Boros might stab him in his back, to which he says that there is a condition for him to follow whenever he wanders outside. And also as a dragon race they have to obey to the strongest, so which means Boros is now completely on Lobelia's side. After hearing that, Lobelia was confused, and he goes on by thinking that it's not making him happy for some reason. Afterwards he started to press the magic book on him by telling the Boros to return. But then he says that he will now prove it to Lobelia that he can be useful, to which Lobelia tells him to prove it right now, and after hearing that, Boros gets near that monster. And he says that he will place this monster in front of the Arcadia, without being noticed by anyone. Afterwards he lifts that monster, while saying that he can return to the spell book anytime, so Lobelia doesn't need to worry. And after seeing him, Lobelia thinks that he is really handy. Afterwards the peoples in the village was confused after seeing that monster. But then Lobelia tells them to cook it for everyone, since he doesn't like getting received, so he wants to do something. And after seeing the size of that monster, everyone is surprised, and they says thanks to Lobelia, but they used a different name. Afterwards Lobelia thinks to himself that it's best to not use his original name, since it will be bad if they found out the truth. Afterwards someone from the guard comes and asks Lobelia to guide them for their hunting, to which he accepts it. But then Alicia calls that guard, and she asks him if she can also participate, since she knows some offensive magic, which she learnt it from Lobelia on the way here. So she can be useful. And after hearing that, Lobelia says that it's okay for her to come with them. After a while, Alicia uses her fire magic. And a guard says that she is doing a good job, to which she says that Lobelia is really good at teaching. Afterwards one of the guards says that they got a lot of food this time, but also there is a lot of strong monsters around. After hearing that, Lobelia realizes it may be because they defeated the dungeon boss. And all of a sudden a wolf comes in to attack Alicia. And the guard tells her to move. But he got a huge bite. But he still defeated it. After seeing it, Alicia was shocked. And then the guard was lying there, and everyone was shocked. And suddenly someone shouts saying that there is a huge monster group coming from the direction of Lobelia. After hearing that, Lobelia realizes that he first needs to calm everyone, so he tells everybody to fall back, since he will take care of the monsters. Afterwards, while leaving, a guy says to Alicia that he is no longer alive. But she just ignores him, and uses healing magic to that guard. And he was just lying there. And after seeing that, she got angry, and she took a sword, and started to run towards the monsters. But this shocked Lobelia, and he calls her, and all of a sudden she defeats the monsters. And after defeating them, she started to walk slowly. And then she sits in a place, while Lobelia is just staring at her. Afterwards she started to cry, and then he comes near her. And after seeing him, she suddenly hugs Lobelia, and she started to cry. And after seeing her, Lobelia realizes that she is no longer the heroine he knows, since she is now like a different person. Afterwards she started to say that, when she was in that labyrinth she couldn't able to do anything, so she trained hard, but now she still needs protection from others. And she goes on by saying that she won't be able to meet the knight's order being like this. And she asks Lobelia on what to do while crying. And after seeing that, all he could do is hug her back and stay silent. After that, a month has passed. And Lobelia taught the men's how to hunt, and he taught the women's how to cook. And also he shared his knowledge with the kids. And also Lobelia got 3 orphanage kids as his disciples, and he shared his knowledge with them. After seeing him, Lobelia tells him good job, which made those kids happy. Afterwards Lobelia thinks to himself that this town has become more lively. And he also realizes that Alicia made some new friends. Afterwards her friend asks Alicia that it's great, which made her confused. Afterwards she goes on by saying that Alicia has a guy that she loves. And also a handsome guy is protecting her to deliver her safely with her lover. Which is almost like a fairy tale. After hearing that, she started to think, but then her friend says maybe Lobelia might have feelings for her. After hearing that, Alicia asks back what type of feelings, to which she says that Lobelia might have a good reason to protect her, since he might be in love with her. After hearing that, she was silent, and all of the sudden she started to blush. And while blushing she says that he is cool, but she doesn't see him in a romantic way, while her friend is thinking that Alicia definitely in love. In the end she asks her if she is not happy about that, to which she blushingly replies with it's not like she is not happy to hear that. Afterwards, at the same night, they were standing as a gate guard, and Alicia asks him on why does he wants to help the people in this town. To which he says that there is no reason needed, since people can change by walking in the path of atonement, no matter how heavy their sins are. After hearing that, she asks him if he will be forgiven, to which he thinks to himself that he had gone too far to the opposite direction. And now all he wants is to save people, and if necessary he wants to walk in the path of atonement from his sins. And after hearing that, she blushingly looks at him. And she goes on by asking him that she wants to walk with Lobelia. And she asks him on, will it be okay for him if she asks him that question. After hearing it, he rejects that, since he is fine by being alone. And also she got some friends waiting for her. After hearing that, she awkwardly smiles while saying sorry for asking him something weird. Afterwards, she leaves the place while saying that she has some work to do in the morning. But then she was wiping the tear in her face while leaving. And after she left, Lobelia started to think did she wanted to stay with him for the rest of her life. Afterwards, another month went by, and both of them were training. And she blocks Lobelia's attack. Afterwards, she comes in to attack him, which he blocked. And she uses the back of her sword and goes in for the second attack. But Lobelia retracted it, which made her sword fly away. In the end, she realizes that she couldn't even able to land a hit on him again. After seeing her, Lobelia says that she passed. And he goes on by thinking that she has a talent to become a swordsman rather than magic. Afterwards, they decided to eat, since the morning training is over. And after returning, the other kids says good morning to Lobelia, and also to Alicia. And while eating the food, he tells to them that he will teach them magic today, which made them happy. Afterwards, in the morning, Lobelia spends it by teaching magic to his disciples. And in the afternoon, he goes for the hunt. And while going to the hunt, Lobelia realizes it's so peaceful. And the other guards were happy since they got a big monster again. And Lobelia was happy since everything is going smoothly, which he can even redeem his name. And all of the sudden, a knight points to Lobelia that there is a smoke coming from the direction of the town. And few hours ago, in the harbor, there were some heavy guards was talking to the chief of this village. After seeing them, Alicia realizes that the heroic Knights Order have finally came here to deliver the food. And she realizes that there is something feels off about them, since there are some spirit church guards can be seen. And also she heard about spirit church rejecting the existence of this town. And all of the sudden someone calls Alicia. And it was a guy, and he realizes it's Alicia. After seeing him, she says his name as Elliot. Afterwards, he started to say that everyone is looking for her. But she was so unfortunate to be teleported into the demon continent. Afterwards, she goes on by saying that she got some help from this town, so it wasn't bad for her. To which he smilingly says that's good to hear. Afterwards, she looks around to see where is Reinhard. To which he says that Reinhard isn't here, so he asked his best friend to do this delivery. And after saying it, he started to think it will be a problem if Reinhard comes with them. Afterwards, a village guy comes in and says it was terrible, since if it wasn't for Tori, which is the different name Lobelia is using here. And if Lobelia wasn't here, they would have been killed by starving. After hearing that, he annoyingly says it must have been hard, but then the village guy starts to shout more saying that attitude wasn't nice. But then all of the sudden he cuts down that village guy by telling him to shut up. And he goes on by saying that they didn't hand over the demon when they asked, and even the priest takes his side. And after seeing that body, Alicia was shocked. Afterwards, Elliot comes in and says that she should be happy since she can finally escape this filthy place. And he goes on by saying that they are here to kill every demons, and if anyone stands in their way, they will also be killed. Afterwards, Lobelia comes into the village, and he realizes that everything is broken. Afterwards, his disciples calls Lobelia and says their friend is injured, and they started to say that if it's Lobelia, then he can heal their friend. After seeing it, Lobelia got upset, since he was lying there with a lot of blood. Afterwards, Lobelia says even he can't bring a dead back to life. After hearing that, the kids started to cry. After that, they realized there is only 30 people alive from that whole village. Afterwards, Lobelia realizes it's the Spirit Church and the Knights Order are behind this chaos. And he goes on by thinking that in the original story, Elliot just says to Reinhard that the Arcadia fell into poverty and they started a fight to themselves, and as a result the Arcadia is no longer there. And after hearing that, Reinhard was shocked, but then Reinhard trusted his friend so much that he didn't even question Elliot. And Lobelia goes on by thinking that if he saved Arcadia from poverty, the peace might return. And while he was saying that, Alicia's friend comes in and says that Alicia was forcefully taken away by that people. And with an angry face, Lobelia asks her to elaborate. And she started to say that Alicia was trying to protect them, but then Elliot comes in and said if she listens to him, he will not hurt any more villagers. But that was a lie, and everyone was killed, but she somehow managed to escape. And they took Alicia with them. After hearing that Lobelia was about to burst out. And he started to think if he is always doomed to choose the villain path. And he goes on by thinking he had enough. And he started to smile thinking that if anything he loves has been taken away, he will just take it by force, no matter what he becomes because of that. And he started to laugh by saying why was he even holding back all this time. Afterwards a guard asks to Tori in what happened, to which he says that he is not Tori, but rather he is that arrogant magician Lobelia Crowley. Meanwhile on the Knight's Order ship. And Alicia was being tied down. And Elliot tells her to have fun rather than being angry all the time. Since it's a wonderful day. After that Alicia says that how can he drink happily after taking that many innocent people's life. To which he just says that a demon from its birth is a sin, which made Alicia to get angry. And she suddenly uses her head to attack him. Which made Elliot angry and he slapped her. And she angrily looks at him, to which he started to say that she became bold enough to make a face like that. And he gets close to her and started to say that she always used to hide behind Reinhard. And also the reason he kept her alive is to make her his women. After hearing that she was grossed out. And she tells him to stop, while he is telling her to shout Reinhard save me, but even if she shouts no one is coming. But to his surprise, she says Lobelia's name and asks him to save her. After hearing his name Elliot realizes that it's the arrogant magician's name, and all of a sudden the ship shakes. And after seeing that sudden shake, Elliot comes out. And to his surprise there were some people wearing a full black coat, was standing at the deck of the ship. And one of them was Lobelia, and while throwing away that coat, he says from now onwards the hell begins.